Today we're going to start talking about a new comprehension strategy, visualizing. Readers can visualize while they read. Mr. Onius, what's visualizing, you may ask? Well, visualizing. This is when your brain makes pictures and movies from the details and words while you read. Why is this important, though? Well, it makes reading more fun and exciting. It can help us make better predictions, and it helps us understand the text. Don't believe me about the first part? Well, think of this. Not every book has pictures. There are plenty of books in this that we can read that don't have any pictures at all, actually. Most often, these are chapter books and novels. Now, if we don't practice visualizing while we're reading, we can get bored very quickly because there's nothing for us to really look at besides words. But if we practice visualizing and we let our brains make up pictures and movies in our heads for us while we're reading, suddenly things get a lot more interesting. I'm going to go ahead and read a portion from a book called Owl Moon. And after that, I'm going to draw a picture based on what I read. Owl Moon is one of my favorite books. It tells a story about a young girl who goes out with her dad owling one night. Owling is when you go out late at night and you try to find owls. Now, this excerpt from the story doesn't have any pictures attached to it, but it's very descriptive, as you'll see. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read the story, this section of it, and what I'd like for you to try is, while I'm reading, listen to your thinking voice. Try to imagine what all of this looks like. And then, afterwards, I'm going to try to draw out a picture of what I saw. I'll point out details, of course, but then I'll take those details and try to draw a picture. It was late one winter night, long past my bedtime, when Pa and I went owling. There was no wind, and the trees stood still as giant statues, and the moon was so bright the sky seemed to shine. Somewhere behind us, a train whistle blew, long and low, like a sad, sad song. There's lots of details in this story, and if that one a little bit was interesting to you, don't worry. We'll read this story again later. It's a good one. So, details I noticed. I noticed that it talks about a winter night, long past bedtime, so it's probably really late. Pa and I went owling. So there's two people, an adult and a child. There's no wind, so the trees stood still like giant statues. The moon was so bright the sky seemed to shine. And there was a train that blew a long, low whistle. So, let's see. When we read, we organize. When we read and visualize, we organize our thoughts into a T-chart. A T-chart is just this. One straight bar that goes across and a bar that goes down, creating two sections. On the left side, it's what the book says. So, what the text says. And on the right is what I think. What I'm thinking. So once again, it's just reading voice and thinking voice. It always comes back to that. So I already showed and read what the text says. What the text says is that it's a winter's night. It's a long past my bedtime. It's Pa and I. The trees stood still as giant statues. The moon was so bright the sky seemed to shine. Train whistle blew somewhere. Okay, so what I'm thinking is, it's late in winter. It's late winter. So the trees are bare. There's no clouds in the sky. Because the sky is shining with the moon. And if there were clouds, the clouds would block out the light. And there's a train whistle blowing, so they live near train tracks. There, your tracks. Okay, so from that, all those details, I'm gonna go ahead and make a drawing of what I think the scene looks like. Now, this might take a bit, but I'll go ahead and describe my process as I go. So let's see. We're going to start with the color white and make a snowy landscape. Then the sky, going to draw the pale yellow moon. And if I have the moon, I'm also going to put some stars. And let's copy some of these. Okay, next I'll draw in the train. And the background of the landscape. So it can reach around and touch everything else. Okay, now I need to include the trees. The nice tall trees. Now these trees are going to take up more of the foreground because they're supposed to be tall and kind of imposing. So I won't keep all the detailed drawing into this stuff, but it's going to be important to see a couple of these. Okay, let's see, let's add a couple more. And when you're drawing trees, it's important to remember that trees aren't perfect. If you ever looked at a tree before, you know that. Okay. So there we go. And now let's look at some more. And now that I've filled in the landscape a little bit and added the trees, I'm going to add the people. So I'm going to draw a rough sketch of a man. I'm going to give him a little hat too because it's probably cold outside. And next to him, I'm going to draw a child. Now, I believe in the story the child is a girl, but I could be mistaken. It's been a little bit since I've read this story, almost a year. Okay, and in the snow, I'm going to make little marks for the tracks. And it says they're looking for owls, so I don't know, maybe I should draw an owl in a tree? But it didn't say it in the story. It didn't say it in the story, so I'm not going to add that detail. I don't want to add more than what I heard. So let's see. This is what I saw in my brain. Here's the train in the background, and it's puffing along its little track. Here's the big sky all shiny with the big moon and the stars. I drew trees. They're standing still, and they don't have any leaves on them because it's winter time. And there's Dad, and there's the child standing behind him, walking around in the snow. And all that came from just looking at a few details in the story. Now, why is this important? From this, I can make a prediction. I could predict, well, because of where they are, and because it's a clear night like this, maybe they'll see an owl. It also helps me keep track of what's going on in the story. Because I took the time to really think up what's happening, I can see the snowy landscape that they're walking through. I can see the crunching snow marks, and it makes me imagine the crunching sound of snow beneath your boots, like. And it's so quiet out there that you can hear the train going in the background. It sounds really nice, honestly. Yeah, this was an example of visualization. In class, we'll look at a couple other examples of visualization in different ways. And I hope that you find this as interesting as I do. It's really easy to visualize. All it takes is a little bit of time to listen to our thinking voice and let it show us something new and amazing.